religion and science? Do they contradict? What is it about those two that seems contradictory to a lot of people? As of right now, I kind of think about this question of contradiction between religion and science on like three different levels. The first one being that they are logically contradictory and not compatible. I think a lot of people see this contradiction as existing, just a logical incompatibility between the two. But I think that's actually the easiest area to have a discussion with people because it's just very patently untrue. I mean, science is the systematic observation and exploration of the natural world. And by definition, it has nothing to say about the supernatural, not directly at least. It can't observe the natural world enough to disprove the supernatural because that's just not how it works. It studies the natural world. And so, religion, at least in the sense of the supernatural, just fundamentally can't be disproved by the study of the natural. So, on that plane of logical contradiction, I think it's pretty easy to flush that out in conversation and move on to maybe like the second level, which is that religion can make a claim that science can disprove. And these, I think, are rarer than people would believe because, for example, the idea that Jesus supernaturally healed a man's hand doesn't fall into this category because he supernaturally healed it. This addresses things like if Islam says that sperm comes from a man's vertebrae. Science can show us objectively this isn't true, and so science can disprove a claim of religion. So this can be an area of more, um, strong debate. But again, it's kind of limited because science can only disprove a natural world claim made by religion. It can't disprove supernatural events. But then the third level that I think is the most common and the most compelling, and yet the least recognized that it's the real reason people are referring to, and that level of contradiction is actually the contradiction of the values associated with the scientific revolution and the values of religion. And this is really important because it's actually an area where science and religion really do conflict. Their values absolutely are not compatible. And I'll say the values of the scientific revolution, you could say atheism or just naturalism, that the natural world explains everything. So, kind of all of those I would lump into the values of the scientific revolution contradicting the values of religion. This is an area of intense contradiction for sure, but it's one that I want to flesh out because it's really a discussion of values, not a discussion of logical or scientific discordance between the two. And this is so much of where people actually find religion and science to be incompatible. And I think it's an area that could yield really good fruit because for some people, it's science says that there's no morality, so we can do what feels right. Gay people should be able to marry and be happy. And this value contradicts with religion, which says that homosexuality is a sin. And so we say science and religion can't coexist because we can't see these values coexisting. And that's accurate. But it's not a logical or scientific contradiction. It's just competing worldview values. And so, anyways, if we can flesh out with people that this is the level at which, they object to Christianity, then we can start talking about the values of Christianity, which are so great. Because if people think that, for example, gay marriage is about love and happiness, I think, make a compelling case that Jesus was more loving than anyone, and he loves you more completely than any other worldview. Like his level of love, where he loves you enough to see you restored and made new and have a future in eternity, and his forgiveness that's unending, like all of these values, I think will start to speak to people. There's like that verse that says, God's kindness leads us to repentance. And that's an area where I want this debate to eventually go. We can kind of settle the fact that it's not logically contradictory. There's not really very many natural world claims that are contradictory. Really, we just have competing worldviews, competing values, and that's what people are so upset about. It's not a strictly rational debate. It's a values debate, and that's why people are so angry at the other side. So, anyways, those are some reflections. Let's see what people on Monkey think. What's up?
Dude, I feel like I'm on a podcast. like, what are we doing, dude? That's crazy background. You got the whole
Yeah,
ass plant,
that's
whole
right.
ass
No,
glasses.
Yeah.
This is that's crazy.
All right. Well, you're about to feel like you're even more on a podcast because I'm asking people what sorts of things they believe in.
Jesus, dude, I am just tipsy enough to engage with shit like this. So
All right.
fuck, fuck.
What
What
do
are
you
you
got
gonna
for
ask
me?
me, man? I
So,
don't got shit for you, bro.
what
I mean, I
uh,
have some questions, I guess.
what are your questions about?
Um, First of all, do you think it's kind of not as applicable right now? But do you think I look like anybody, like in general, like in the U.S. discourse? Like,
I can't think of anything for you, but I'm not super big on the celebrity scene, so I don't have many. I'm not very good at naming lookalikes.
that's fine.
Question for
That's
you
fine.
then. What do you believe is the point of life?
To give a net positive to the world and to pursue your own happiness, whatever that might be. Um, yeah, like
Okay.
irregardless to whatever any kind of societal like norms tell you, to just not bring to bring like a net positive in the sense that you are putting a good thing in the world and also being happy yourself, and
Okay.
then not taking that away from anyone else. So
So the most important things are to achieve your own happiness and then to have a net positive impact without harming someone else's happiness.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
To me that's like good life goals.
So what do you do when what makes one person happy makes another person mad? For example, if there's a religion that says, that you should
Jesus
never
Christ.
be,
I wasn't prepared for all this, but
yeah.
go on.
Um, if there's a religion that says that, being gay is a sin, so in their idea, net positive would be, less homosexuality. But in your idea, net positive is people doing whatever sexual activities make them happy. How do you then go forward? Because different people will be happy with different things.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me. I'm not like a diehard fucking like Catholic Christian. Like whatever, happiness is so hard to achieve nowadays that whatever makes you happy, regardless if it falls within like traditional man and wife type shit, like do what you want. You know.
What
I
if
guess I
it,
guess I guess the nuance in that, I guess like if we want to get into the nitty gritty, I guess the nuance would come to where it's like if you want to have a like God, I got like hella loud rap music playing in the background. It's like really weird to like talk about this with that. So
yeah,
I guess the nitty gritty would come into like if you want to like have a traditional Christian wedding it in like a church, but you would be like a man and a man, which like I don't care about. But it's like if you want to embody like a bunch of those like biblical things like at the same time, like then there's some kind of like it's kind of juxtaposed like with that. But if we're talking about just like two people marrying each other, like do whatever makes you happy. Like I don't mind. I guess it comes down to like the um I don't know the word for it, but like the nuances of like, well, if you want to be like super Christian, have like crosses and like have a pope, whatever fucking officiate the wedding or something, that it becomes weird. But I just don't believe in that. Like I just don't really care about that shit. So
okay. So then I guess I'm assuming you don't believe there's any kind of a God or higher power.
no, there's definitely something that like made everything like I don't know what I am. I'm how old do you think I am?
Uh, 23 based on your profile.
No, I'm not my age in my profile.
Okay.
So give an age based off of
25.
just I'm 20. I turned 28 like a couple days ago. So
Sure.
I still don't know what the fuck I am. Okay.
Yeah. Uh,
I definitely believe something is. I don't know. Something is going on greater than what we know, but
okay.
I don't know if it's like Buddhism is the way, fucking, whatever is the way, Christianity, all the other religion. I don't know. Obviously something created something. So
Yeah. Okay. Do you think that whatever created everything, do you think that being has a say in what you should do? You think you should live your own truth, kind of your own happiness. But what if that being does he have a say? She, he, she?
this is this is more than I ever signed up for, but I actually like it. It's fun. Like this is why I'm like on this app,
Yeah.
to like just goof around. Um, do I think that they have a saying? I think it is probably so far like removed from what we as like humans on Earth can probably even perceive or comprehend that it's like pretty much irrelevant to whatever our like growing up, like our traditions and beliefs even mean, that it's like doesn't matter whatsoever. No.
Okay. So what do you think about that? Makes me think of Jesus because Jesus, at least in the Bible, lived 2,000 years ago, and he said that the God who created the world absolutely wants something to do with you, and you can get to know him. So was Jesus like just crazy or wrong, or what do you think about him?
No, no. I think like I'm very pro. Like I was born like raised like Catholic. Like um, definitely believe in Jesus. Definitely believe he was a real person. Like did like good things in the world. Um, like I don't know. Like what was your question? Like yeah, no. Like yeah, I think there's inherent good in like what you do. Um, for sure.
I guess specifically my question, you seem to think that the higher power didn't really have anything to do with our lives. It was too aloof. But Jesus said that the higher power cares a lot about every single person's life. So I was wondering if you disagreed with Jesus based on your statement.
I, I would have to have more, like, I don't think so. Like, my flat answer would be no. I think I would agree. Like, everything I've, like, read and, like, heard about Jesus and, like, what he believed and what he would, like, want for the world, like, I would be like, yeah, no, that always sounded good. Like, that was
Hmm.
fine. Um, so I would I would say no, yeah, that like I definitely agree with Jesus and everything he said.
Okay. So there's one, yeah, I think people kind of have a general sense of like Jesus is a really good person and they agree with like, I mean, he's super loving. That's absolutely true. And he's forgiving and people like agree with that. But Jesus also said things like when he started his ministry where he was going out to different towns in Israel and preaching to people, his main message was repent and believe for the kingdom of God has come near. So I think what he's teaching is a lot different than what you believe because he would say, don't follow your own truth. Don't do what makes you happy. Repent
Okay,
from going your own way and
hold
go
on.
God's way.
Can you give me like 1 second? My mic just cut out.
Sure.
I'm back.
All right.
Jesus said, he to
Repent
repent and to
and
believe. Yeah.
believe. Yeah. Which would include repenting is essentially turning from your present way of living. So he would say, don't pursue your own happiness, pursue God's way, I think.
Okay.
Do you
I guess
disagree with that?
well, I would we would just have to get into the nitty gritty.
Sure.
Like that's a very generalized like statement of like pursuing God's way.
Hmm.
Like what are you writing down? Why are you typing this?
I just was going to tell you the verse.
Oh, the
That's where Jesus
verse.
says
Okay.
that. If you wanted to get into the nitty gritty.
Okay. Mark 15.
Yeah.
I will actually write that down.
Yeah. If you
I
just
mean,
read the
like, okay,
whole.
full disclosure. Like, I just moved cities, went through like a major life upheaval. Like, I'm trying to find a church. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to pursue God right
Hmm.
now. Like, Jesus. Like, I'm trying to find like a church,
Yeah.
and figure things out. But I've never been like, um, ironed out like really solidified in something. I've
Yeah.
always been kind of like whimsical and like people should like be happy, do what they want, but like I've always liked the Christian values. I think like out of all the religions I've studied, like it seems like very like most aligned with that. So
Yeah.
yeah, okay, Mark 115. I'll definitely read Mark 115.
Yeah. You should just so you kind of understand the whole chapter, if you just read Mark 1, not actually you could probably if you read the whole book of Mark, it'll probably take you like 40 minutes. So you could get a whole lot of an idea of Jesus' life in a pretty short time if you want to. But yeah, Mark chapter 1.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool, cool. Well, anything else you want to cover on this podcast?
I mean, shit, that's crazy. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing on here? You're not even like it. Like you seem like you're very versed in like the Bible and stuff. Like, but you're very not like pushy with the same like kind of Christian stuff. Like someone that would be like so intellectually in tune with like the Bible and verses and saying like all that would be to me would always be like do all this, do all
Yeah,
this. Like, why are you just saying like, oh yeah, this might be interesting to you. Peace out. Like, are
yeah,
you a Christian? Like, what are you?
yeah. That's a good question. I am a Christian, and I guess the reason that I'm on here, kind of just chatting with people, is that I find the Christian values super compelling, and I find that they're
Yes.
not always what people think either. Christian values, I think, are really hard to swallow when you read them all. Like Jesus said something that was like, if you want to be my disciple, you should count the cost, because the cost is like pretty high. Jesus has a lot of things to say about how you should live and what sorts of things you should give up. And so, anyways, yeah, I just think there's a lot of crazy values, but it's super compelling. And the most compelling part to me is that Jesus loves you. Like he loves me. And
Hmm.
the thing that's just most shocking about that is when you understand like what God's standard is for us to live. Like Jesus was perfect, but his standard for us is to like just is very high, that we would always be loving to the people around us and that we would always be obedient to God. And there is no shortage of times when I don't live up to that, and Jesus loves me and he forgives me. And I don't know, it's a wonderful thing for me. And I don't think people really know what Jesus teaches, so I just like to offer it up to people.
Holy, dude! I wish more Christians were like you. Like,
Thanks.
I'm so serious. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Just like everything. Like since I've met you, you've absolutely embodied. Like, I'm so confused in myself. And
Yeah.
like I said, I was like born Catholic, baptized, like all this, like grown up with Jesus. But like I feel like Christians get a really bad rep with some of like the boomer Christians that are just like really just ratchet and how they like view everything. Like
Yeah.
you have like the kind of head on your shoulders that like I align with way more, and
Yeah.
like I guess I kind of like fight with, um, or just am like not sure of myself in about like Christianity and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. I want to find a church here in Tampa where it's like I can find a pastor that like has like that kind of like saying and message. Like
Sure.
seriously, I'm looking for that right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, if
I'll
I could,
definitely read Mark 1:15.
yeah, you should. If I could offer you just kind of one piece of advice, I would say you should look for a church that teaches the Bible, because a lot of churches will teach whatever's important to them, even if it's, related to the Bible. But if you want to really know God, like the true God, and you want to be changed by God, and you want to experience the depths of his love, not just a superficial idea of it, like you really have to know the true God. And a church that teaches the Bible is going to be a good church to teach you about God and kind of the crazy stuff that he and his crazy love for you. So um, I think that
Wow.
I say that too because it's really tempting for us as humans, I think, to seek out whatever message is most comfortable for us and makes us feel the best,
I know.
which
I know.
is easy, but the gospel is something that's really a hard truth. Like you're a sinner and you deserve to be separated from God in hell, and you should change your ways. Like morally, you should. So that's like a hard truth. But it's the place where you can find that you don't measure up, but you're forgiven, and God's going to start changing you. And so, yeah, it's a hard truth, but it's worth finding a church that teaches the truth, not just what you want to hear. So there's a thought for you.
Dude, oh my God. I don't mean to use God's name in vain, but like you are seriously like, dude, that's just the
Yeah.
fact that you have not pushed like, yeah, I would have never taken you as like a Christian or a believer in Jesus and everything off rip. Like
Yeah.
you've been so objective, and I'm an engineer. Like I'm a
Yeah.
complete nerd at heart.
Yeah.
I very scientific, very analytical, very mathematical in the universe, and like
Yeah.
I really like space and everything. Okay, it's like
Nice.
so I struggle with that and religion, like mixing it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of engineers and very mathematical like people do,
Yeah.
and you have such a good mindset of that I would align with. So that's
Yeah.
great. What do you think about aliens? Because like obviously it's inevitable in this whole world. Like there's there's other life out there. Okay, the Pope has already said like it's not, God created everything. Like there's obviously other people out there. Like what is your take on like other life forms like living in the whole universe? Like I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah. Well, I'll say a few things there. But if you're interested in discussing, what I'm more interested in is this idea of like religion, science, contradiction. It's something that I actually was just thinking about before coming on Monkey, and I was hoping to like talk to people to see what they think about that because it's definitely something I've been thinking about too. I also have like kind of a science background, and so it's something I think
Mhm.
about a lot. So love to chat about that. But regarding aliens, I really don't know. I kind of claim like ignorance here because the Bible doesn't really mention it, and they're not really in my life right now. So it's kind of like
Yeah,
speculation, and I just think about other things. So I
yeah,
guess if I just had to take a stab at it, I'd say I wouldn't be surprised if we were the only ones here, but who knows? Either way, I think God would be sovereign.
yeah. There's like biblical references like to aliens as well. Like I wish I knew the name for it, and you'd probably know. It's like the miracle or the um, dang it, I really wish I knew it because it's actually I do think it's referenced in the Bible. It's like the miracle of some. It's not. I don't think it's a saint, but it's like the miracle of
Hmm.
something, and it's like when like somebody spoke to angels on some hilltop, and dang it, I really wish I knew it. But there is biblical references, and like at the same token, like so you're a Christian, you're not Catholic, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So there in Catholicism, like there is a lot of references to um, angels being like some kind of intelligent being from not on just planet Earth, but just like from somewhere else in the universe. And like even the Pope has said multiple, like not just Pope Francis, but like other popes have said like there's other intelligent life forms like in our universe. Like I'm just wondering how that meshes with your view of Christianity in that, because like as analytical and sciencey and as like nerdy as I am, like there is essentially irrefutable evidence right now there is other life forms and stuff in our universe. And so like that is something that I don't think it necessarily is like completely different to like our beliefs, but it's something that like religion will have to come to terms with.
Sure.
And I think it's like I'm just curious with you. You seem extremely intelligent and knowledgeable
Thanks.
about religion. That how do you swallow that pill, and like how do you digest that?
Yeah. So, um, I guess if I just back to kind of science and religion being compatible, I guess let me ask you this: where or what about science and religion? Like, where is it the stickiest for you? Like, these don't mesh. Is it aliens? Is that like the most contradiction, or
Oh,
where in those do you find the most
here's
contradiction?
here's a great one. I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah.
Um, Creationism.
Mm-hmm.
Creationism. Do you think there were dinosaurs? Do you think evolution is real?
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I think the Bible is true. There's a number of ways I come to that conclusion, but it is one conclusion I've drawn. The Bible is true. And so in the Bible, have you ever read the creation account in the Bible?
I, when I was a little kid, and I don't really remember it now.
Yeah. Might ring a bell with the 7 days of creation. So it's like in the beginning,
First, it was
God made,
like
yep, light. And then it kind of goes through, plants and animals. There's like land, plant, and all the other ones. I can't remember exactly their order, but so uh, this idea of um, making the world in 7 days versus kind of the billions of years that the scientific community estimates. I think that I don't have a perfect answer. I don't know. It's one of those things where I think it could be a literal 7 days, and maybe that's how God worked it, and we're missing something in science. Or maybe it's a figurative 7 days, and God just worked out creation over time, is essentially what it's saying. And in that sense, it's not contradictory at all. So it's one of those things where I don't know. I could take a stand, but I don't think I need to know because it's not a crucial area for me. It could be either way. Uh, with
So,
with regards to evolution, I actually am in medical school right now, so I do study like biology and stuff a lot. So I find that to be a very fascinating area of science. Um, and I think evolution by natural selection via um, gene mutation in your DNA is honestly, I think it has some real obstacles to it being very credible. Uh, and there's just so much that we could say about that. I don't even know what's a good place to start. So I guess, yeah. What are your thoughts?
um, yeah, I mean, like if I could just like if I could boil everything down into like just a sentence or something, like I think the evidence is just overwhelming in the case of evolution over time
Yeah,
is a thing. Dinosaurs did exist.
yeah,
Like, do you believe in dinosaurs?
yeah,
Like, do you think dinosaurs were real?
yeah. I think dinosaurs are real. I mean, I think the fossil record is pretty clear that there were, some kind of species
Okay.
as we know
Okay.
dinosaurs. Um, but here's what I will say about evolution being super well established. So I think what's really well established is that there's a very consistent trend in organisms from like less complex to more complex. So there's like, when we think about the eye, for example, like you can look at each stage of what you would think of as eye development, and there's like a creature with kind of each stage of eye
Yes.
building up to what we see, which is, I think, like a very strong indirect evidence of this kind of natural progression. Uh,
Yes.
what else is there in evolution that is compelling and quote overwhelming evidence? What would you say?
If we're just talking about progression over time, we could talk about the whales having the bone for arms or whatnot that
Yeah,
eventually over billions of years like got smaller and smaller to the point like where we have like records of it being um, like I don't know some bigger body part to smaller over. We just have like a bunch of snapshots of it changing over millions of years to where whether it be a frog to a tadpole or a whale to something, it's like they had some kind of body part that was different over time and it's over like a billion years like kind of deal. Like I think the evidence for evolution through fossil records is like it's too much to just like write off and say like, well, this is just coincidental.
yeah.
Um, so
So
if you're asking me specifically for like what one is like
yeah,
right there, I'm not like super versed on that, but I
yeah,
remember reading about the bones in whales about how like whales like
yeah,
have like a baby like arm or something, and it's like there's definitely something there.
yeah. So kind of where I sit with it is, a little bit of confusion because, like you say, this kind of gradual, like these very gradual changes in the fossil record would seem to me to indicate some sort of natural progression of evolution. But what I will say is something I think about more often with evolution is the natural selection by DNA mutation. So if you think about evolution as something that's happening by natural selection, the very mechanism by which it acts is mutations in DNA. And I think this is an area that's frankly horribly inadequate to explain evolution. So either, in my opinion, evolution is false or we don't understand it very well at all because DNA mutation is not powerful enough to create the changes we've seen in life over time. And what I mean by this is, do you know much about amino acids and proteins and things of that nature?
I know, yeah, I know a little bit. You know, I'm taking like Bio 1, Bio 2 and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't,
So,
oh, before you go on, I will disagree and say that
sure.
um, from what everything I've understand and studied, I don't agree with the statement that our like background in understanding like whatever you said before about how we don't have enough evidence
Yeah.
of the change over time on those specific things like I'm not going to be able to like reiterate like off the dome
Yes.
tonight about this is actually this, but like everything I'm seeing, like we do have there's a lot of literature and like scientific evidence that like this has occurred over time.
Hmm. So, yeah. And just to clarify what I was saying, I'm not saying that there isn't fossil records that cover a progression of species. I'm agreeing that there is fossil record of this. But what I'm saying is that the mechanism that we can imagine this happening by, I mean, everything that it's based on, that is um, DNA mutation, doesn't work to explain evolution. So, and that's so crucial to evolution that if it doesn't make sense, then there is no evolution, or we don't really understand it at all, because that's just fundamental to how evolution works is DNA mutation. So I agree with you that it's in the fossil record and that there's a lot of literature. There's a ton of studies evidencing this, but I'm saying that I don't think, as I currently understand it, that evolution by DNA mutation is possible. And there's a number of reasons for this, but one of them is that if you think about life on a cellular level, is like the largest. All life boils down to cells, and cells are made up of different structures, including proteins and amino acids. Amino acids are like little Lego building blocks that make up
Yeah,
proteins.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, so in when DNA mutates, uh, it basically transcribes into a different order of amino acids to create a protein. So the number of different proteins that there could be is astronomical because there's 20 different amino acids that can be in any different order. And what they've found is that the number of these proteins that like randomly generated proteins that will fold into a functional shape is like 1 in 10 to the 70th, which is truly an unfathomable number. I think I've heard that there's something like 10 to the 84th atoms in the universe. So 1 out of 10 to the 70th random strings of proteins is estimated to self form into a functional shape. And so what you're looking at is a number of mutations that would have to be in the genetic, in each stage of reproduction. The number of mutations is just strictly not powerful enough to create the amount of variation in life that we see. So there's something like 10 to the 40th generations of genetic reproduction estimated to have happened in the entirety of Earth's history. So if there's that many reproduction events and something like 10 to the 6 reproduction errors in each reproduction event, you're not even close to creating enough proteins to have a change. And so that's a really nitty gritty look. And there's a lot more ways to look at it, things like irreducible complexity. But on the whole, I think that DNA mutation is, in my opinion, at this point, just insufficient to explain evolution. And so I would say that there's other ways to look at what we
Yeah.
see in the natural world.
That's so funny. I have homework for Mark 115 for sure, but
Yeah,
I want to give you just a little bit of something to look at as far as it's just so pertinent to what you just said
yeah,
about the proteins folding.
yeah.
The Nobel Prize this year in 2024. Have you heard at all about what that was? It
Nope,
was
I
the
have
fact
not.
that it was gifted to two scientists. You can just type in, I'll just type it Nobel Prize 2024. You can just type in Nobel Prize 2024
Okay.
protein folding. And the Nobel Prize in chemistry of this year or last year was in that AI actually did every single calculation. You said it was 10 to the 40th, 10 to the 70th. We actually used AI to figure out every single one of those folds that you mentioned about how it's
Hmm.
like unfathomable.
Yeah.
We cracked, here it is. Machine learning cracked the protein folding problem. And we now know every single variation that could, the computational protein design and protein structure prediction has been solved. So every single thing, the thing you mentioned about how it was like unfathomable that like all the different ways that protein could fold, you said you're pre-med, like you obviously have an understanding of this.
Hmm.
Um, we did last year, 2024, we figured out every single way that they can fold together and actually build um, a what we're going to have extreme advancements in medicine, in like drugs, in therapies, in like everything in general, because we did figure out every way that those proteins fold and interact in the ways that we could do it. Before we had to like blast them with radiation and then like use a mass spectrometer to fucking like see the way they folded, and now we used AI to literally accurately calculate every single way they fold, and we just basically like advanced like thousands of years. Harvard put out a study; it would take like 1,000 years of PhDs of 100 like 100 PhDs studying 24/7 to figure out every way these things fold. And we figured it out last year just by using like machine learning. And that's me as like a software engineer, like computer science, like very technical nerd, very
Yeah.
in tune with AI. Um, I like that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
it was just really funny you mentioned that about the protein
Yeah.
folding, and the Nobel Prize of 2024 was figuring out every way the proteins fold. So
That
you as yeah,
that is really interesting, and I will have to look at that, and I think I'll be really curious to see where that information leads. But just the brief perusal that I did right here, I just want to correct one thing. The AI structure predicts how a protein will fold. So this machine learning actually enables us to understand the number 10, 10 to the 1 and 10 to the 70th, because it doesn't predict. I mean, it would be impossible to predict every possible folding because it's an infinite number of possible permutations of amino acids. But what it can do is take a string of amino acids and predict how it will fold. And it's that prediction that allows us to say that only 1 in 10 to the 70th are able to fold into functional structures. So I think there's a slight nuance there, but I will definitely be looking into that.
yeah, it's cool. Don't you think you're in the minority of like pre med, like people going into medicine that have your mindset? Don't you think a lot of like med students, your peers, like studying, like are very agnostic or atheist and like how they view things? Like I would think most of your peers think fully back like evolution and all the kind of like stuff that you have some like gripes with.
Hmm. Yeah. So here's what I'll say. It's very true. Very true. But my observation is one thing that I think is interesting is that you know when it comes to medicine and really all of life, uh, there's like the rational things we understand, but really what it comes down to is how you act based on your values. So even if I don't believe that evolution is the best explanation of what we currently have, I can still do my best to understand what we currently have and then act in a scientific and rational manner and to do right by the people that I interact with. So I think that's very true that I have a very different perspective than a lot of people. But I do think that a lot of it comes down to what are you going to do with what you have in front of you? And you don't have to agree about DNA mutation and evolution to still practice
Like
good medicine. So
to administer the right drug, you know, type
what was
shit.
that? Oh, right. Yeah,
To administer the right drug, like
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
crazy. I think I think you have a very good view. How old are you?
25.
25.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have a bachelor's, or are you in your bachelor's?
Yep, I did my bachelor's in chemistry and Spanish, and then I'm in my third year of medical school right now.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Do you want to I don't know. What state are you studying medicine in?
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Where are you at?
I don't. I'm in Florida. I'm a Florida kid.
Ah,
So
there you go.
yeah,
Gotcha.
Florida has its own like pretenses as far as like religion and everything.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I think I don't really fall into anything. Like I'm very confused. And my biggest gripes, obviously believe in Jesus, and believe in all that. But my biggest gripes is when it comes to like evolution, and then also life outside of Earth. You know,
Hmm.
there's so much evidence that there is other life in the universe, and then the evolution part. So
Yeah.
if we want to get like super nitty gritty and just like fall by the Bible, I'll
Yeah.
definitely read Mark 1:15. But it's like, I guess that me being like such like a nerdy mathematical dude,
Yeah.
that is my biggest I guess conflict when it comes to like the strict Christian values. But
Yeah. That's I can relate to just like being conflicted over that, for sure. And just one thought, I feel intellectually satisfied as a Christian who questions some, things like evolution. So, I've thought about it a fair bit. Maybe I've become brainwashed, but I would say it's I would encourage you to have an open mind, because I find, just yeah, I can be very intellectually satisfied in Christianity. I can be a thinker and still be content. So
yeah, my dad's a dentist, like practicing dentist DMD, and he got his full like he went back to school recently and got his full theology degree. Like he is
oh really?
actually like
Oh wow.
yes, extremely like religious
Huh.
and
Interesting.
yes, yeah. So
I can't.
I obviously yeah I come from like you know people who are like that, but like he went back and like got his theology degree and is like very religious in that sense. So it's like
Huh. Yeah.
I have a lot of conflict in my life as far as like being like super analytical like nerd like
Yeah. Right.
and like I love school, I love math, I love like seeing the world for what it is, but then also like I do believe in like so much stuff. So I feel like I'm kind of in a gray area of what to believe. So it for me it's personally extremely hard
Yeah.
to nail down one and just be like, okay, I'm a Christian. We're the only person in the world. Evolution's not real, like kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
which is what I feel a lot of, I don't know, a lot of churches would say. So it's like I'm kind of like in the middle. I'm in the whatever they call it, whatever
Yeah.
the saying is.
Yeah. Would just like to add that I kind of shared what I personally think about evolution, but I don't think you need to agree with me on evolution to be a Christian. I think there's plenty of room for that. So please don't.
Dude, I love, dude. I wish more Christians are like you. Is your name Kenny? Is your
Yeah.
name really Kenny?
Yep.
Kenny from Minnesota?
Yep. You got it.
Wow, dude, I never would have thought that, like off
That's
rip,
pretty
that
funny.
this is what you were gonna go. I never would have thought you were like some Christian, like trying to pump like Jesus. Like
Yeah.
that is good. You definitely got me to think, and I'll probably read the whole verse in Mark. But
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be great. Uh,
dude,
if there wasn't too much else to say, this has been a delightful conversation. Uh,
I've enjoyed it. It's
yeah.
better than seeing weirdos on here.
Yeah.
That's actually that's that's the most like significant like anything I've had on here. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I really appreciate that, man.
All right. Well, that was a really fun conversation for me. It was just neat to see how it started with this discussion of values and beliefs, and then turned into a discussion on science and religion, which was kind of what I was hoping for the entire video. With my introduction that I started with, I was hoping to have that conversation. So that was great. And it was also just, just so neat to see him, Chris, be so interested in like how not pushy that I was. I think Christians kind of get a rap for that, for being either hypocritical or judgy or pushing their beliefs. Um, and I think to some extent we get that because we stand on God's truth and we believe that there's sin and judgment. And so it's probably going to be hard to escape that reputation entirely. But then I think a lot of the times we also get it because we are those things. But this conversation where Chris was so interested in an invitational Christianity rather than, a confrontational Christianity, makes me think of Jesus in Matthew 4:19, where he said, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And just thinking about the concept of fishing, a fisherman doesn't see a fish and dive in and pursue that fish until he grabs it and puts it in the boat. Uh, a fisherman really can only let down his line. He can throw over his net and just bring in what those catch. And I think in the same way, we can't grab somebody and drag them into the kingdom of heaven. We can just be super faithful and persistent about offering up the enticing news, good news that Jesus has offered us, and let him do the work of convincing people to bite. And sometimes, like with Chris, that ends up being more compelling anyways. And I think too with like the story where Jesus tells the disciples to cast their net on the other side and it brings in a lot of fish, I would just encourage you to be consistent about offering your line, your net, to the people around you, to fish for people, and listen to the Lord's direction for where he wants you to cast your net, because it's not going to be the same place for everyone. Maybe it's your family, maybe it's your coworkers, maybe it's joining on monkey.app. So yeah, totally would encourage you to think about where Jesus is calling you to cast your net, and then just letting him do the work as you are persistent in offering out the good news and in prayer for the people that you love. The other thing that kind of stood out in this was the religion and science aspect. We kind of got into the nitty-gritty of creationism, the Bible's claims about creation and evolution. And so I think with what I talked about in the introduction, this would fall under the science contradicting a natural world claim offered by a religion. And with this issue in particular, I think the question is, does the Bible literally prescribe a 7-day creation that conflicts with science? And more specifically, we kind of honed in on assuming that it does evolution and the natural world contradict this idea of creationism? So I really focused in on some concepts that I picked up from a video featuring a few scientists regarding the mathematical problems of Darwin and Darwin's theory, and I'll put that in the description below. But that's kind of where I got my numbers, and I don't have a good sense of how rigorous their research is. So that's a weakness. I'm not an expert on any of this. I assume my understanding will change over time, and that science will show me to be wrong in areas as we continue to learn more about the natural world. But the other thing I would say is that I don't know a lot about fossils and how that speaks to evolution. I know that there's some people who make their case against evolution entirely based on the fossil record, seeing that it's not cut and dried evidence for evolution. I would encourage you to look up the Cambrian explosion if that is something that interests you, but it's just not something I know enough about, and it's so prevalent in like research papers that without just claiming that they're lying, I don't know enough to say that that it doesn't support evolution. And so that's kind of an area that I just surrender, saying I really don't know about that. But the biology and the chemistry and the math are I think telling, condemning even for evolution. We'll see how well that statement holds up. But I think that as I look at the Bible and I look at the natural world, I do think evolution has a lot of problems. And so anyways, we'll see how things go as I continue to chat on Monkey. But thanks for tuning in for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.